Hello everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to draw facial features with charcoal this time. This is a finished one that I just kind of was working on here and whipped up. I'm going to be drawing, for this next series, I'm going to be drawing some former students of mine, so everybody say hello to Kat here. Hi Kat! Kat, if you're watching, make a comment on the video. So I'm going to go ahead and start over here and show you some of the supplies we're going to need. So definitely you want a charcoal pencil. I like to kind of start off with that to sketch and then to do some tight detail afterwards. You want some charcoal sticks for large areas. I personally like vine charcoal a lot. It doesn't get real dark or really thick, but it's nice to get into those hard to reach areas. We're going to work with some white Conte crayon today. So that or like a white charcoal pencil kind of does the same trick where you can get in there and do like some reflections and final details like that too. We'll use a blender, but very sparingly, just in a few little areas that mostly kind of stick with my finger, as you can tell. And just a little paper towel or napkin will work too. Definitely want some pencil sharpeners nearby. May want a sketch pencil, and then erasers. I like kneaded erasers a lot for charcoal, but I kind of forgot mine in the classroom. So in a pinch though, anything will do. Gum eraser or like a Staedtler eraser is probably fine too. So today we're going to be doing the eye, and let's get started. So you can start off, this is kind of a personal preference of mine. Some people like to do this. It's not 100% necessary, but I kind of like to start with a medium gray tone. So they actually sell gray paper that you can start with, and then you add the black, add the white to it. Some of my students in the past, if you've done this, you may have seen gray paper projects like this before. But I'm going to just start off by toning the paper with the charcoal. So I'm going to kind of go in a circular motion, use the flat side of the charcoal, and just try to get a light, even coat over everything. You'll notice that the paper is really texturized. That's so that all the charcoal can kind of adhere to it. This does create a dust sometimes, so careful not to blow it too much, because it can kind of go in the air and you'll breathe it in and then start sneezing out black boogers. Nobody wants that. So using that paper towel to kind of spread it out, I definitely want a nice even coat on here. Actually, today I think we'll go this way so I can make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so just like before, we're going to start off with the iris. So I'm looking at close up of the iris, and notice I've got a bunch of different printouts. I even have something up on the computer here. I like to have lots of references all around me. But we're going to start off with a circle right here for the iris. She is looking up a little bit, so the top of her iris is getting cut off a tiny bit. We can see just a little bit of the sclera, the white of the eye, underneath here too, and then her bottom eyelid starts. So I'm kind of just looking at all that, planning it out before I start. I'm also looking very carefully at these little shark fin shapes right here. So the white of the eye is called the sclera, but they kind of create these little shark fin shapes here and here. This side just a little bit bigger than this shark fin over here. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I start. So let's start off with that iris shape. And there's no way I'm going to get this perfect on the first try, so I'm kind of sketching it out slowly, going back and forth till I feel like I've got a decent circle. I don't want to get too dark just yet. And then I know the pupil is going to be right about in the center. She's got darker eyes, but it is going to be a little bit lighter down here. Usually it's a little bit lighter at the bottom of the iris, because that's where the light can hit. Up here it's kind of blocked by the eyelid. All right, and just to kind of plan this out, I may end up doing this with the white charcoal or white Conte later on, but let's kind of plan out where the reflections might be so I don't cover that up too much. Okay, now I know part of the iris is getting covered up by the eyelid, so we're going to do this. And as I'm making this eyelid shape, I'm looking really carefully at this curve of the upper eyelid, and then the bottom eyelid is kind of going flat across, or flatter anyway. If you're a current student looking over this, take a good look at your eye when you start on your own and make sure that you are drawing exactly what you see there. So it's not going to be the exact same as Kat's here. Okay. Now, a lot of times when we have a little bit of excess here like that, we'll want to erase it. But this being charcoal, it's probably just going to smear right in as soon as we start putting some darks and lights in and erasing and all that. All right, so we can kind of darken up our lines just a little bit. And I'll put in a little bit of the crease in our eyelids. The eyelashes I'm going to wait on. All right, so that's a good place to start. You know, it might not be perfect at this point, but I just want to make sure it looks like a real eye. That's kind of our focus here. Don't worry about it too much, trying to make it look just like the eye in front of you. As long as it's a convincing eye, that is fine by most people. No one's going to see the original reference photo when you're done. Everyone just sees the artwork. And make sure that you do not point out your imperfections to other people. If there's a little part you screwed up on, don't mention it. They won't even notice. You'll be like, oh, that's the most amazing eye ever. And then you'll be like, oh, but this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Don't tell them it's a secret. All right, so I'm using the thick charcoal stick because I know I got to cover a large area here. For the pupil, the top part of the iris, because that's really dark. One kind of cool thing about charcoal is that you're going to find it blends so much easier than graphite than a regular pencil. But it does get messy, so we got to tighten this up later on. It's going to be super messy right now. So just be patient, but most of the stuff we can kind of erase and correct later on. All right. All right, so it's a decent start there. All right, now start working on the eyelids. Now, even the white of the eye has a little bit of shading in it. So if any of you have drawn the spheres, you know that the eyeball is basically a sphere, and there's going to be some shadow as it gets close to the corner of the eye, on both sides, really. This pink stuff here in the tear duct, that's going to be a little bit darker. It almost appears like a black in the photo. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of shading on the edges here. We're going to smooth a lot of that out soon. And there's some extra shading in here. And remember, there's a little bit of white of the eye showing in between the iris and the eyelid over here. Okay, so now might be a good time to introduce the blender. I don't want to use it too much because it does get caked full of charcoal very quickly. I'm just going to kind of use it to do the finer details. Blend that in maybe like in places where my finger can't get in there. Okay, I might go with some vine charcoal in here. Like I said, it's a little bit lighter. Blends really nicely though. But you can get into tighter areas that the charcoal stick can't. So it's like a nice in-between the charcoal sticks and the charcoal pencil. And if you haven't really used this stuff much, just keep experimenting. That's why we're doing these practice drawings here. If you mess up on one eye, just fix it as best you can, move on to the next. Okay. Now, if you don't want it to look too scratchy, try to use the side of the charcoal as much as you can. If you need to blend a large area, jump in there with a paper towel. This smooths it out for you. And this part's going to be a little bit darker. So right now it's darker than it needs to be. But that's okay, because I'm going to start erasing and adding in some light tones. And then we'll do detail at the end. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start erasing a little bit. Let me just blend this out some. Okay. All right, so we're going to tighten up that iris a little bit. I think I made it too big at first. So you're going to make mistakes here and there. Just be able to spot them and correct them. I do feel like charcoal is a little bit easier to correct than some other media. Like watercolor, for instance, can be very unforgiving. And you're not going to be able to get it pure white. If you did tone your paper, you're not going to be able to get it pure white. That's why we got the white charcoal pencil or Conte crayon to do that. Okay. All right, touch that up in a little bit. And get in there with the blender. Soften that up. All right, now I want to tighten up the pupil. And I'll do that with a combination of the pencil and the sticks. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have a couple different sticks. So we've got like a big one. I've got one that I kind of broke and I've worn down a little bit. So this one can get a little more precise than the other one can. All right, like we said before, the outside of the iris is always going to be a little bit darker. Okay. All right, it's coming along. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'll use the small stick actually to do the eyelashes. So the eyelashes on top are going to be a lot more apparent than the ones in the bottom. They're a lot thicker and they're going to kind of splay out a little bit. I want to simplify them as much as I can. I don't want to sit there and try to do every single little strand. So I'm going to kind of group them together. And maybe I'll use a combination of the stick and the pencil for that. And if you kind of just do the like flicking motion and curve it while you're doing it, it usually looks pretty good. It does take a little practice. And if you're not too sure, not too confident about it, hold it away from your face every once in a while. And I'm kind of pulling away from this and seeing it from a little bit of a distance to see how it will look, because when we draw, our face is all buried in it, but then as soon as we put it up for display, it usually looks a lot better. So I kind of messed up the crease a little while I was doing the eyelashes, so I'm going to go back over that. Darken that up. It's the crease where it's going to eventually kind of go into the nose. We'll do the nose and mouth next time. All right, I'm getting into a point where I'm starting to get content with that. Let's see what it looks like when we throw in the white detail. You know, so often, like even if you don't have a reflection in the eye, and I may have mentioned this before, as soon as you throw one in, all of a sudden it like brings a lot of life to your portrait. So even if you don't see one, throw one in anyway, or two, or three, whatever. All right, and I do see a few eyelashes in the bottom, so maybe I'll just do that with a pencil, so it'll be a little bit lighter. Not trying to make it too prominent. Okay, and I can live with that. That is how you use charcoal to draw an eye. And we will jump to some other facial features here next time. Thanks for tuning in.